Welcome to the Retiring Canada podcast, where our mission is to educate and empower you to make the most informed, rational, and productive financial decisions. Hosted by certified financial planner, author, and chartered investment manager Michael Isbister, you'll go behind the scenes to uncover the tips and strategies to help you invest smarter, optimize your retirement income, and reduce the amount of tax you pay. Michael is an investment advisor with Fundamental Wealth, a trade name of Harbourfront Wealth Management, an IROC dealer. And now, here's your host, Michael Isbister.
Hello everyone, and welcome again to the Retiring Canada podcast. In today's episode, we're going to discuss tax-efficient fund placement, aka asset location. Specifically, I'm going to chat about what is asset location and how does it differ from asset allocation, an example of how this is implemented, the key benefits of asset location, 3 important considerations before implementing asset location changes, finding the balance to manage liquidity and tax efficiency, the most common errors we come across, and as always, a few action items for you to consider. Well, I hope everyone has been enjoying their summer so far. My family and I have bounced around to a few different lakes this year, and I've really enjoyed exploring our province with the little ones. I do have one exciting piece of news to share with you that I think you will appreciate. This fall, I will be pivoting the podcast to a slightly different format that I think you will enjoy. I'm going to be updating on a weekly release schedule, and I'll also be video recording the podcast and making it available on YouTube. I've been considering this change for a few months now and have been diligently preparing to do the switch, but I really just want to ensure that I have the highest quality content for you guys. So stay tuned, exciting things to come. And if you want to make sure you don't miss it, feel free to jump on my Retiring Canada newsletter so you never miss any of my retirement planning content. Okay, so back to the episode today. I will be discussing tax-efficient placement of your investments within your retirement accounts, also known as asset location. Not to be confused, of course, with asset allocation. So as a refresher, asset allocation refers to the percentage of your portfolio that will target each asset class. So an easy example is a typical 60-40 portfolio. This is made up of 60% equity or stocks and 40% fixed income or bonds. These represent your asset classes, equity and fixed income, and together their percentages represent your asset allocation. As a refresher, asset allocation refers to the percentage of your portfolio that will target each asset class. So an easy example is a typical 60-40 portfolio. This is made up of 60% equity or stocks and 40% fixed income or bonds. These represent your asset classes, equity and fixed income, and together their percentages represent your asset allocation. Asset location takes things a step further. By managing all accounts as a single holistic portfolio, the implementation of tax-efficient fund placement, known as asset location, becomes possible. This technique is especially valuable for those of you in a high marginal tax bracket. So if you were, again, to have a look at that typical 60-40 portfolio, so 60% equity, 40% fixed income, and consider each of these asset classes separately, you will discover that the tax treatment of each of these are drastically different. Now, because certain asset classes are more tax efficient than others, 2 portfolios with identical pre-tax returns can experience significantly different after-tax returns depending on where the assets are placed across the various accounts comprising the retirement portfolio. Once we have determined the right asset allocation for a client, so i.e. again, the percentage of the portfolio that will target each of those asset classes, we then carefully consider the optimal location of each asset class to maximize the portfolio's tax efficiency. So to be more specific, we carefully consider which mutual funds and ETFs to place in tax advantage accounts like RRSPs, RIFs, defined contribution pensions, TFSAs, and which to place in taxable accounts, often referred to as non-registered accounts, so as to minimize the difference between the portfolio's pre-tax and after-tax return. So as an example, here's a scenario I came across recently with a client. He and his wife have about $800,000 in investments spread across 3 account types: RRSPs, TFSAs, and a joint non-registered account. In their RRSPs, they held a portfolio of traditional high-fee 60/40 mutual funds, and in the TFSA, they held GICs and high-interest savings. And in the joint non-registered account, they held more high-interest savings and some traditional 60/40 mutual funds. After careful consideration by myself and my team, we determined we could build a more tax-efficient portfolio without changing their risk profile. This involved shifting more of their overall retirement portfolio's equity from the RRSPs to the joint non-registered account and TFSAs. It called for a more prudent use of the TFSA to take advantage of tax-free growth and a shift of their fixed income investments in GICs into their fully taxable RRSP accounts. This also required us to deconstruct their high-fee 60/40 portfolio into a low-cost fund and ETF solution that were more apt to provide tax efficiency and cost reduction that we advocate for our retirement clients. Here is an even simpler example of asset location at work. Say you have $500,000. Half in an RRSP invested 100% in equities, and the other half in 100% bonds and fixed income. The asset allocation of the overall retirement portfolio is 50-50, but the tax efficiency of the portfolio is completely backwards. Since withdrawals from an RRSP or RIF are 100% taxable as income, and interest income generated from fixed income portfolios is also 100% taxed, it would make more sense to simply switch the asset locations between the RRSP and non-registered account to create a more tax-efficient portfolio. So in this very oversimplified example, you would shift all the fixed income and bonds into the RIF or RRSP, and all of the equities, which are tax preferred, into the non-registered account. The overall risk tolerance of the retirement's portfolio has not changed. It's still 50-50. However, now the end result is a more tax-efficient portfolio overall. Again, this example is very oversimplified, and I'm not factoring in TFSAs, potential tax consequences from rebalancing, and client specifics like risk tolerance and income needs. So please consult with a professional before considering these types of changes. So while the key benefit to this approach is tax efficiency, there are some important considerations you need to understand before implementing tax-efficient fund placement. First, this strategy assumes that all your accounts are being managed holistically, which rests on the assumption that all of your money in the accounts is for the same goal, i.e., retirement. It is important to segregate some monies for short-term goals and needs separately as to not impact the long-term efficiency of the retirement portfolio. Next, in order to implement this strategy, you need to be comfortable with each of your accounts getting different returns, and instead focus on an overall after-tax performance of the aggregated portfolio. Furthermore, you need to be comfortable that the investments in a given account may look strange in isolation. So, for example, if an ideal tax strategy dictates that all of the RRSP account be invested in bond funds, it may look very counterintuitive if viewed in isolation, rather than just one piece of the overall retirement puzzle. Lastly, while perfectly optimizing a portfolio according to the framework I have discussed would sometimes suggest that all of a client's taxable bonds be placed in their tax-advantaged accounts, meaning their taxable accounts would only hold stock funds, we have learned that reality requires a slight adjustment to this approach. Even if the client expects that all the money within the holistically managed portfolio will be used for the same long-term goal, a client's goals can quickly change, and their portfolio should be flexible enough to easily allow for unplanned withdrawals. Specifically, because stock funds are more likely than bonds to either go up or down significantly in value, or have material unrealized capital gains that would be realized if sold, and because any withdrawals from a client's portfolio would need to come from their taxable accounts for the foreseeable future, the perfectly tax-optimized portfolio construction could backfire should they ever need to make an unexpected withdrawal. For that reason, it's good practice to place a portion of bond funds in a taxable account. Doing so makes it more likely that you could liquidate some of the portfolio at any time with more confidence in the available balance without material tax consequences. We manage this inevitable trade-off between perfect tax optimization and liquidity considerations on our client's behalf. Tax-efficient fund placement requires some upfront and ongoing effort to optimize, but executed correctly, it can be a powerful wealth preservation strategy for retirees. Okay, so that will do it for today. Here are your action items for today's episode. First off, I understand that this concept is quite technical and may be out of the comfort zone of most of you listening to this podcast. With that considered, check out our fundamental retirement plan process by visiting our website, where we professionally implement and monitor retirement plans that utilize asset location as one piece of the retirement puzzle. Lastly, one of the most common errors we see with regards to asset location is not utilizing the tax-free savings account properly. While the name of the account says savings account, the fact is that nearly any kind of traditional investment can be held inside of this account. For retirement investors, ensuring this account is topped up annually and the assets located inside of the TFSA are thoughtfully considered will help to ensure a tax-efficient retirement well into your golden years. Well, that'll do it for today. For all the links and resources discussed, please check out the show notes or visit retiringcanada.ca. If you're enjoying the show, please subscribe and leave us a 5-star review in your favorite podcast app. Be sure to sign up for our weekly Retiring Canada newsletter. And hey, when it comes to your retirement, don't take chances. Make a plan so you can retire with confidence.
All comments are of a general nature and should not be relied upon as individual advice. The views and opinions expressed in this commentary may not necessarily reflect those of Harbourfront Wealth Management. While every attempt is made to ensure accuracy, facts and figures are not guaranteed. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing or tax advice. Please seek advice from your accountant regarding anything raised in the content of the podcast regarding your individual tax situation. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.